parents are parents, and they love their kids, and they want the best for their kids. And so I kind of take that as they're my kids, and I want the best for them as well. And so I'm going to do everything I can when even they mess up, and whenever they do wrong, and sit down with them and, I love you. I want you to make it.
Welcome to another edition of Maverick University. I'm your host, David Hallberg. Joining me today is Brother Mike Bragg. Brother Bragg grew up at Lafayette Bible Baptist Church in Missouri under his dad's pastorate, and came to Providence Baptist College and graduated here.
05.
Okay. And then in 2008, then you took a position with Faith Baptist Church in Bourbonnais as a school administrator, and has stayed there ever since in that position, in that ministry. And we've known you for a while, down through the years. I've known your wife's family.
That's right.
They're very, very influential in my life.
That's right.
Just down through the years. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate your family and all that you've meant to us throughout the years.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's just a privilege to be here this week for the Old Paths, and thanks for having me on today.
I want to talk a little bit about your role as a school administrator.
Sure.
Obviously, there's so many topics, and we're just going to get one shot at this. So we're going to talk about school relationships.
Okay.
You said something today. We're at our Old Paths conference, and you preached today. Said something about something to the effect of how much time you spend with the youth of your church per week. Can you expound on that?
I was preaching today and just about how much, yes, we need pastors and we need youth pastors in the ministry. We really do. And the time that we are short, if you will, short-lived in our lives, time's important. The time that we get to spend with people. And so one of the reasons I chose school administration was simply for the purpose of that we need men to be teaching the next generation even while they're in high school.
Yeah.
They need that male influence in their life. And statistically, the man is not staying in the home. We deal even with their Christian school kids that are from single-family homes. They don't have a dad. And so, again, no offense, but a lot of them or schools are being influenced by women. They're lady teachers, and there's some great lady teachers. We have some great lady teachers, but there's not a lot of male leadership there. And so I looked at it as an opportunity to influence that next generation. You get, 8:30 to 3, they go to school, and I'm probably with them by the time I teach classes, electives, PE, things like that. I'm with them about 3 hours in the day. And multiply that by 5 days in the week, I'm with them 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
And the time that I spend with them, yes, it's academics, but there's also teaching points of spiritual things that I can also relate to them and try to help them along the way. And, their youth pastor or pastor, yes, they're in front of them preaching and, youth activities and things like that. But really, honestly, it's nowhere near the same time that I spend with them. And so I look at it as a great opportunity, honestly. It's a unique opportunity with school, and we need more men doing it.
Yeah.
We need more men out of Providence. We need more men just wanting to be in administration. And I take an assistant pastor role, but I look at it as I'm pastoring those 80 kids at Faith Baptist Academy. Those are my kids, and that's how I view it as.
The amount of influence that a person has when they're involved in education is so much greater than others. I mean, people always talk about how influential their pastor is and things like that, but think about the time that a pastor gets to spend in a maybe one-on-one setting, or maybe even in a smaller setting.
Right.
But a teacher, they get that all the time, 5 days a week, multiple hours a day with the youth, with the next generation, and it's an unbelievable opportunity that I'd encourage guys considering going into the ministry.
Absolutely.
You need to be, if maybe God has called you to pastor, maybe God's called you to preach, but consider equipping yourself to be involved in Christian education, because that is a major influence point that can be gained or lost depending on how you prepare for it.
Exactly. So, and they're being influenced by somebody.
Yes.
If we're not going to get to them at that age, their junior high, high school age, they're going to get influenced by somebody else. And unfortunately, the feminist movement and things like that are taking over our young men. And that's why at Providence and being here, the influence that I had, I'm trying to give to the next generation. And I hope that we see that. We have a kid in our school that this year is his first year at Faith, and one of the reasons why he didn't want to go to public school anymore is because they're pumping in CNN in his classes. That's what he's getting.
Really?
On a day-to-day basis.
They watch CNN on a daily basis.
They watch CNN on a day-to-day basis.
So just like in a Christian school setting, you have the daily Bible reading.
Yeah.
In a public school, you have the daily CNN watching.
Right. And they want to accuse us of brainwashing, but yet, and so I asked him just last week, I said, what's one thing you really have enjoyed about coming to Christian school? And you hit on it he said, I love the fact that we start out the day reading God's Word. We have a Proverbs every day. We start in homeroom, and it's a Proverbs. And they just write down 2 applications that they got for the day. And it's a great thing. And he has just soaked it up. He's just been loving it. We have kids from public school that have come in, and we kind of vet them, through, if you will, but then majority we're closed. It's just our church kids. And so God has given us 80, and I'm thrilled. I love it. I enjoy it. I'm passionate still about it.
So you want to take advantage of the influence that you have, and you do that by cultivating the right relationships with these kids and make sure that they make it. Because although a Christian school setting can be an advantage, you're spending more time with them, but at the same time, you're spending more time with them, which is more opportunity for hurt feelings or offenses to come. And keeping right relationships is paramount and essential for that. So talk a little bit about the kind of relationships that need to be built in a Christian school setting.
Right. For me, one of the areas that we talk about a lot is just communication with these young people. And as much as we want to not get in the world of electronics and try as much as we can to, but honestly, it's a great way to encourage young people, being able to communicate with them. I get texts from them, hey, when they can't sometimes reach out towards their pastor, the youth pastor wasn't available or something like that, I feel like they can at least come to somebody who has some knowledge, if you will, a little bit, and being able to help them with that. And communication's huge. In some cases, they look at us as their parent. I mean, they really do feel like if something goes wrong with Brother Bragg or something goes wrong with somebody that's a teacher in the school, I'm not just let my parent, I've let them down.
Yeah, and it means something.
It means something to them. But it's because, I've said this from day one, I'm not a guy who likes to sit behind a desk. I hate paperwork. I wish I had somebody to grade my own papers, but I don't.
Amen.
I grade my own papers. And so 37 math papers daily after 5 days gets a little old, but I enjoy the communication. I walk the hallways. I don't like picking up the phone to even talk to the secretary because I like communicating with them face to face. And that's what I like doing with the kids. I have a little book that I pray for my kids every single day in the school, but I know them by name. And that's important to me. But that starts with communication. That starts with, you got to get out there. You got to be with them, involved with them. And so when something goes haywire in their life,
there's already a channel.
There's somebody they're already communicating with.
Yeah.
They're already with a lot, And you're right. Sometimes being together hurts, because you are with them and they kind of see the fallacies in your life, if you will, some things that might irritate you or get at you and things like that. But my early days, I would try to, get out there and run with them and do certain things PE-wise or school. And now I'm too old and it doesn't work that way. But I would be, and I'd find myself, the competition, with each other. And I wait a minute, they look at me as authority. They look at me as, and it really put in perspective, honestly, where I'm at now to where I was when I began. Brother Andrew Reardon just came on staff.
Sure.
And Brother Mick Hall left to take a church there in Iowa. And so I was talking to one of our teenage guys, and I said, man, are you disappointed that Brother Mick has gone. You communicated with him so well. He was great. And he said, honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to Brother Andrew coming. I said, well, why? What's so? He said, well, he's kind of closer to my age in this. And he said, no offense, but I look at you and Brother Mick as more of my dad. I was like, man, I feel old now. Dad status there for some of them. But, again, I said it today, you stick around long enough, going in my 14th year at teaching administration at Faith, that their kids are bringing and putting their kids in school. And so it's the next generation that I've begun to see. I've gone through a group where I started when they were in kindergarten and they just graduated last year. And so that's it's pretty awesome to see that as well. So
talk a little bit about communication or relationships with parents and how you can incorporate them, involve them in their child's education and keep them on board.
Sure. One of the things that we really try hard to do is that kind of coming together of a three-chord, the parents, the administration, and the students working in the same direction. If you're not working together with your parents and communicating with your parents, they feel left out in the dark. They really do. And I try real hard. One of the things that I said at the very beginning was anything that would happen with our young people, good or bad, because oftentimes we only bring the bad stuff to our parents. But the good or bad, to communicate with them. It's not hard to pick up a phone and call a parent and say, hey, they had a great day today.
There's always an excuse to communicate.
Exactly. There's always that excuse. And so I enjoy, and yes, I see them in church, and there's kind of that fine line of, where do you talk about, something.
We're at church, let's not do school stuff here.
Let's not do school stuff here.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of parents are able to help with that, but parents are parents, and they love their kids, and they want the best for their kids. And so I kind of take that as they're my kids, and I want the best for them as well. And so I'm going to do everything I can when even they mess up, and whenever they do wrong, and sit down with them and, I love you. I want you to make it. I want you to do right. And we really are. I kind of talked about that a little bit before, was just our schools are geared for kids to make that step for ministry-related responsibilities.
Sure.
We have a lot of great laymen in the church, and if they don't go into full-time Christian work, that's great, but we just want to be full-time Christian wherever they're at. And that's the whole goal, I think, of communicating with the parent, is they see it sometimes as, well, they have to go in the ministry. No, they don't. They don't have to go in the ministry. But they can still go off, as I did, as a one-year student to Providence Baptist College, and still come here. We have some kids right now at Providence that they just told their parents they're coming for 1 year.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just because I kept asking, why don't you send them for 1 year? Just send them 1 year. You never know what's going to happen. Talked to one last week, a parent of a kid that's here, and they said, they're loving it. They just love it. They love being here. I said, you never know. You never know what. I was one of those, so you never know what could happen with them. So communication's huge with the parents, because it's their kids.
Yeah.
They wear it close to the vest. They want to know what's going on and how they're doing. And we do well academically. But we are a Christian school, and we make no apologies about that.
You talked about the threefold cord and talked about those tough conversations that sometimes have to happen. Maybe there's some kind of incident, and obviously you always want to talk up the positive, but sometimes you have to have those tough conversations. And are those situations kind of the times when you find out, are we all pulling in the same direction?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because sometimes maybe you and the parents are on board, and you find out that this kid's not, or maybe you find out, hey, you're calling something to the parent's attention, you find out the parents aren't even with me on this. How do you...
Well, you guys can probably understand this. You find a character flaw in a kid, it's generally a character flaw that's in the parent. That parent has the same flaw, and sometimes it's hard to, you want to correct the parent through the kid. You want them to be, okay, this is what you need to be doing, but yet the parent's not even doing that.
Sure.
They're not even on that same page.
They don't have the support at home.
Right. The support there at home is not the same. And so It is difficult sometimes. You kind of walk that thin line, if you will. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Because I don't want to offend them.
Sure.
But I also want this kid to understand, hey, you signed something here saying you're going to agree to all the rules here. This is what you need to do. And so, yeah, the kids see that. Kids see that in inconsistency. And, this is what the school's doing, and they're saying it's right. And at home, we're not doing this. And so sometimes it does drive a wedge. Sometimes it does drive that. And the hope is parents get right from the preaching in church, and they get where they're supposed to be at. And so it is difficult. There are some difficult times.
You're so right about that inconsistency that can happen where we're in the Christian school, these are the rules we have to live by.
Right.
But when we're at home, it's a different set of standards, which is death.
Right.
I mean, if you have this set of standards or this set of standards, pick one.
Right.
And your kid will make it.
I remember I had a conversation.
You adopt both, and you live a fake life, you're going to lose your kids.
I had a conversation with a mom one time. She ccame in and just said, Brother Bragg, I don't agree with the pants issue. I don't wear them, or I don't wear a skirt. I wear pants, and I don't know that I can subject my daughter to the same thing. And I said, and she was just pulling her kid out of school. And I said, I appreciate at least you're not in between on this thing.
Yeah.
It's not I'm one way at church. I'm a different way over here. Unfortunately, exactly. Let's be real about it. Unfortunately, she's not in a good place now. But at least I appreciate that. We're not going to live one way and a different way. The kids, they see that inconsistency, for sure.
We just have a couple minutes left, and I want to cover one last thing. In the ministry where you are, you've got an interesting dynamic. Many churches don't have this, where you have a Christian school administrator, the principal of the school, and then on top of that, you also have a youth pastor. Maybe in some smaller ministries, maybe the principal is also the youth pastor.
Right.
But here's two, I don't want to say the word competing, but it could be that way, I suppose, where you're competing for the attention of a teenager. He's competing for the attention of a teenager. And how do you get together and once again work in the same direction?
Well, I came on staff in 2008 with Brother Mick Hall at the same time. In fact, he came a week before I did. And getting there, two young guns, if you will, two guys, green as can be, but wanting to be passionate about what we're doing. There were times where we would butt heads. We would come in. In fact, it even got to some points we'd come out and play sports together, and I'd have to walk away, or he'd have to walk away and say, okay, we gotta calm it down. Let's get our cool here. But it ended up being that we would compare, if you will, and talk about what our hopes were for the young people, what our goals for the young people were.
Yeah, if you have the same goal,
exactly,
then you can actually go
and
the
we
same
were
direction.
working in the same direction. He would say, I've been preaching about this, and I'd say, well, I'm trying to work with the kid in school about this. He's lazy, he's not turning in his homework, and maybe he's not, listening to you because he's up playing video games or something's going on. Hey, maybe, and sometimes it wasn't my place to go in and say something. If you kind of that parent type thing of when do you say something, sometimes I would deflect to him and I say, hey, can you talk to mom and dad? I know you've seen it. I'm not the only one. We're working together here. He'd say, hey, when you're in class or you see him in the hall, can you just, what's going on? Or where were they? And so we would work together for a goal, for a vision, if you will, a dream for our young people. It really was.
So the advantage was you're viewing the same behavior from two different perspectives, and then you had two different avenues with which to correct it. So thank you so much for joining us, Brother Bragg. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, sir.
And so you want to check out our other episodes on our YouTube channel and also on the audio-only platforms. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us.